So one analyst from 4Bs kind of went on a little bit of a rampage when it came to the iPhone rumors that they don't really have much evidence to, but you guys know me, I like entertaining the theory of people's ideas or people's predictions, no matter how impossible they may seem. This particular analyst said that there would be a smaller notch, which is like, okay, cool, like we're ready for that. Touch ID integrated back into the iPhone, except it's underneath the display this time. Whoa! Okay, we just got used to Face ID. We want that to be improved, but okay, we're going back to Touch ID. I guess providing people with options. And 3, we'll sport a USB-C charge port. Whoa, okay. That's a little bit weird, but are these analyst predictions likely? Probably not, and I'll talk more about that later. But let's just hypothesize for a second if this is real and why it possibly could be a good thing. So first off, a smaller notch. This is something I think everyone's expecting in 2019, but in my opinion doesn't really make a huge difference to the phone because a notch is still a notch. No matter the size of it, it's still going to be a tad more intrusive. It's still going to be there when you use the phone sideways and you're trying to figure out, do I watch the video in full screen or 16:9? Or when you're playing games, you gotta figure out which way you want to hold the phone, which side of the phone has the notch. I don't really think it's a truly immersive, seamless experience until we remove the notch entirely, but I doubt that's going to be in 2019. But unless you're Google and you make it look like drastically uglier than everyone else's, it's not going to feel like a giant upgrade, because even if the iPhone notch is able to be shrunk, as Venya Geskin has theorized, they have to move the speaker grill into the side bezel in order to actually shrink that notch significantly. Apps are still going to have to work around it, so is the user interface. You still can't put things in the middle of the top bar of the screen, and you're still going to have to decide whether or not you want to embrace the notch or not embrace the notch when watching content or looking at pictures and stuff like that. Regardless though, I think it would be very, very helpful if we had some type of visual way of telling the difference between a 2018 iPhone XS and a 2019 iPhone 11, whatever they're going to call it. Because there are a few rumors out there that are saying that in 2019, the new iPhones aren't going to look different at all, which honestly really, really depresses me. I hope that's not true. We already kind of had an S year. I kind of hope this year we can get a little bit of a mix-up, something a little bit different, so at least we can tell the difference. So the smaller notch, of course, I'm in favor for, but I don't think it's going to make that big a difference. But then moving on to Touch ID being implemented back into the display. Now, while this is a long shot for a lot of people because Apple seems to be pushing Face ID very, very diligently and saying, everyone, this is the better biometric, this one's more reliable, we believe that Face ID is the future. For this analyst to say that they're going to go back to Touch ID and start implementing it into the display does feel a lot not like Apple, but I can't necessarily say there's no evidence to suggest they're theorizing it. There are some patents to suggest that Apple is still experimenting with devices that have Touch ID and Face ID at the same time. We've seen those patent filings in the past, which of course does not necessarily guarantee that it's going to be on the next iPhone, but it at least means that people at Apple are looking into it. They're thinking, well, you know, we still sell the iPhone 8, we still sell the iPhone 7, so people who really, really want Touch ID still have it, but they have to put up with kind of a slower, older phone. Maybe when we start discontinuing the iPhone 7 and the iPhone 8, which will be in the next couple years, they want to keep those customers who care a lot about that preferred biometric. Some people don't like Face ID, they don't find it very reliable, and they would rather use a fingerprint, so Apple's still got their foot in the water a little bit with the Touch ID biometric, saying, can we implement this into the display? How fast can we make it? Can we make it just as secure as it was before? And while I personally don't think that the 2019 iPhones will have it, I can understand why this analyst is predicting that. It seems fairly plausible, but at the same time, I know Apple, and I know that Apple is not about having options, they're usually about having less options, but they are better options for people. So while a lot of other phones out there may have 2 or 3 biometrics, the iPhone has 1, but it is super, super secure and can work a lot better than a lot of the competition. So Apple's more about less options that are good, which is why implementing Touch ID underneath the display on the next iPhone sounds a little bit weird. But hey, iPhone sales are down, and if Apple really wants to turn things around, I think having options and kind of changing up their game a little bit could be a really smart move. And then the last one that this analyst predicted was that the new iPhones in 2019 will have USB-C charging. This is something, don't get me wrong, I absolutely would love to see USB-C, as we've now seen it on the iPad Pros, brought over to the iPhones as well, but you guys know my stance on why iPhones don't have USB-C. It's my personal belief that Apple has not adopted it to the new iPhones yet because they know they want to ditch the port entirely within a couple of years. They're really pushing wireless technology. Sounds like there's 100 people in there like scratching their heads over an air-powered charge mat every day. day trying to figure out how does this work, but Apple's definitely all about wireless, and I think they would prefer people to all start charging their phones with Qi and eventually get rid of the port entirely, and I understand there's a lot of problems with that. You're worried about factory resetting, you're worried about charging and using headphones at the same time, or using your phone and charging it simultaneously, and removing the port doesn't allow you to do that, I know. But we have evidence that Apple even considered removing the Lightning port on the iPhone X in 2017, which goes along to tell you that while maybe they're not doing it this year or next year, they're still considering it. They want to have that portless future. They want you to be able to drop your phone on any Qi-supported mat, or maybe someday, if they remove the port, Apple will have to include their own wireless charger, maybe even include AirPods in the package with the new iPhones that come out, just because they want to abandon the dongles and they want to go all in on wireless. While yes, that may end up making the phone more expensive, Apple's all about having the best option, not the cheapest option. So I've been about that for a long time, and it's kind of how I've excused the fact that Apple doesn't adopt a USB-C, and I'm sure lots of you are already saying, they make so much money from Lightning accessories, that's why they use Lightning. Well, desperate times call for desperate measures, so perhaps the slump in iPhone sales and the fact that the smartphone market is beginning to plateau is starting to scare them and making them think, you know what, while we do want a portless device, we also understand there's going to be a huge amount of backlash to come along with that. There's a lot of iPhone users out there that would be fine with it and would adapt, but right now, when the smartphone market is starting to plateau, is no time to start picking and choosing favorite customers. Apple could be rethinking the game a little bit right now and saying, okay, iPhones are our primary source of revenue, maybe we shouldn't be as chancy. Maybe we should just start focusing on having the most amount of options possible, and hopefully that will get iPhones on top and outperforming all the Androids they're competing with. So they go ahead and cave and go with USB-C and say, you know what, we did it on the iPad, we're sorry it took so long on the iPhone, but now it is time to truly have one port for all of your devices charging all of them, but it would still be a big mess because AirPods charge via Lightning. Are you going to make a USB-C version of AirPods now? Magic Keyboard, Magic Mouse, those still use Lightning, and it's still a big mess. Even if the iPhone switched it, it would be a giant mess. But regardless, I've been portless on my personal iPhone for a long time, so whatever charge port they put on the iPhone, I'm not really going to use it anyway. But believe me, I am all for it. I absolutely want to see one charge port across all the devices, and I think it would be absolutely incredible that with one cable and one charger, you could charge your phone, your tablet, your MacBook, and you don't have to pack around different chargers for every single cable you bring around with you. So that's just one possible way Apple could be taking 2019. They could say, let's not do risks anymore. We need to stop thinking about what we want the iPhone to be and start thinking more about how to get as many customers as possible to line up for the new iPhone, which is kind of sad. It kind of defeats a lot of Apple's true vision and a lot of what they want to make technology turn into, but at the same time, they're a giant company. They got a lot of people with a lot of livelihoods to consider, not to mention a ton of shareholders that are not exactly happy right now. So maybe pleasing them for the time being until money is more safe is Apple's smarter method. So what do you guys think is going to happen? Is this analyst completely crazy, or do you think they may be onto something? Let me know in the comments below. This is your Apple Sheep here. I'll see you in the next one.